I'm Taylor, 27, and the night my sister tried to humiliate me at our family dinner was the night everything changed. She thought pushing me aside would break me, but instead it pulled me into a world she never imagined I'd belong to. From being mocked as the outsider to standing beside the very people who controlled her future, I watched her pride unravel in real time. What began as a cruel joke turned into a war between us, a battle that dragged both family and fortune into its flames. And the moment I chose silence over revenge, that was when the real story began. The banquet hall glowed with a deliberate kind of grandeur, the kind that pressed people into their chairs and made them sit straighter, as though posture alone could buy them a sliver of belonging. My family sat at the center table, lined up like actors rehearsing an old play we all knew by heart, smiles for the cameras, tight voices underneath, knives hidden in polished silver. The clinking of cutlery had been background noise, the murmurs of distant conversations easy to ignore, until my sister decided to turn the evening into a spectacle. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing as though the thought had only just bloomed in her head, though I knew better. Her smile had edges, sharp and deliberate, made for an audience. Then she said it, loud enough for every guest at the neighboring tables to hear. "You're adopted. You don't belong here. Go sit somewhere else." Her words landed like glass dropped on marble, and the reaction was instant. A ripple of laughter, quick and cruel, broke from the table. Aunts tittered behind their napkins. Cousins smirked into their drinks. Even my mother's lips twitched, as though holding back amusement. It wasn't the first jab I had endured, but the public precision of it told me this was planned, rehearsed. I didn't give them what they wanted. I didn't cry. I didn't snap. I didn't ask her why she always chose me as her stage prop for mockery. Instead, I placed my fork neatly onto the plate, picked it up, and rose from my seat. Chairs creaked as heads turned, waiting for a scene. My silence unnerved them more than any outburst could. But I didn't leave the hall. I walked across the polished floor, every step echoing beneath the chandelier light, and set my plate down at the table draped in navy silk, one set apart from the rest, where the hotel manager sat with a man most of them hadn't bothered to recognize. I didn't ask permission. I didn't glance back. I pulled out the chair and sat. The room quieted, laughter dissolving into confusion. My sister's smirk faltered, confusion flickering across her face like a poorly rehearsed mask slipping off. The hotel manager greeted me with an easy nod, as though my choice had been expected. Beside him, the man in a dark suit, calm, watchful, his presence demanding attention without effort, lifted his glass in acknowledgement. "This," the manager said, turning toward the audience that had suddenly fallen silent, "is exactly the person we've been waiting to introduce." The CEO stood, smooth and unhurried, scanning the room with the air of someone who understood power was most effective when it didn't need to be explained. He raised his glass, his voice cutting through the silence, with deliberate weight. "Meet our new partner," he announced. "The reason this company is expanding, the future we're investing in." Every eye snapped toward me. My plate sat untouched in front of me, but it didn't matter. My sister's fork slipped from her hand, clattering onto her plate with a metallic crack that echoed louder than the announcement itself. Her skin drained of color, lips parting as if she had swallowed something she couldn't quite breathe past. She coughed, nearly choking, and I didn't move to help. For the first time that evening, no one laughed. The dinner dragged on in fractured silence. I didn't speak unless addressed, and every word from the CEO about partnerships and vision only tightened the noose around my sister's pride. She had built her entire identity around her career at the subsidiary company, her constant bragging about board meetings and promotions fueling her superiority at every family gathering. Now the parent firm's leader was standing here, toasting me, while she sat speechless, her glass untouched. When the applause finally broke out, hesitant at first, it only deepened her humiliation. She kept her head low, stabbing at her food though she barely ate, her jaw tight, her smile gone. By the time dessert was served, she excused herself, claiming illness. I didn't bother to watch her leave. The morning stretched thin, sunlight pushing through the blinds in strips across my bedroom wall. My phone was still lit, the notifications stacking faster than I could clear them. 99 missed calls from my sister, each more desperate than the last, as if persistence could erase what she had done the night before. I set it face down, letting it buzz against the nightstand until the battery drained itself. The house was quiet. My parents hadn't spoken much after the dinner, their silence loaded with an unease they didn't want to name. They'd laughed when she mocked me, but the announcement had shifted something they hadn't planned for. Now, every message from my sister proved what I already knew. Her world was unraveling, and she wanted me to study it. By noon, a knock came at the door. Slow, deliberate, too careful to be casual. I didn't move right away. Another knock followed, firmer this time. When I opened it, my mother stood there, arms crossed, face tight with the kind of smile people wear when they're rehearsing an apology they don't believe in. "She's upset," my mother said. "You should answer her." I leaned against the frame. She wasn't upset when she tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. "She didn't mean it," she replied quickly, as though rushing past the words might soften them. "You know how your sister is." I let her stand there, waiting for me to agree, waiting for me to fall back into the role I had always played, the quiet one, the one who swallowed the insult to keep peace. But I stayed silent, and eventually, her forced smile faltered. "She's family," she pressed. "Don't forget that." I shut the door before she could say more. That afternoon, the CEO called. His tone carried none of the forced politeness my family used. It was direct, grounded. He asked to meet for lunch at the hotel, not as a formality, but as a continuation of the partnership. I agreed. When I arrived, the restaurant staff led me straight past the crowded tables, seating me in a private section overlooking the city. He was already there, seated with files spread in front of him. Not the kind of man who wasted time on small talk. "You handled yourself well last night," he said, without preamble. "Grace under pressure. That's rare." I nodded, waiting. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents detailing expansion plans, new markets, strategies. My name was listed alongside his in the agreements. Not a symbolic gesture. Real power. "You'll need to decide how public you want your involvement to be," he continued. "Right now, only a few know. But your sister's company answers to us. You could let her learn slowly, or you could make it official." The choice hung there, sharp and heavy. My sister had built her identity on her career, her constant boasting at family dinners about projects and clients her greatest currency. With a single announcement, I could strip that from her. "I'll wait," I said finally. "Let her stumble before I take away the ground." The CEO studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. Approval without words. Leaving the hotel, I spotted her across the lobby. She must have followed me, or maybe she had been waiting. Her hair was tied back, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. She approached, fast but unsteady, as if she hadn't slept all night. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice cracked on the last word. I kept walking. She reached for my arm, but I stepped aside, her hand falling uselessly to her side. Guests glanced at us, sensing the tension but pretending not to watch. "You don't understand," she pressed, her voice lowering. "That man, he could ruin everything for me. Please, just tell me what you're doing." I stopped, turned, and met her eyes. For once, she didn't look superior. She looked small, cornered. "You told me I didn't belong," I said. "Now you want me to save you?" Her lips trembled, but no words came. I left her standing there, her reflection swallowed by the glass doors as I stepped outside. That evening, my father called. His voice carried the sharpness of someone who had been drinking anger all day and now wanted to pour it onto someone else. "You're making a spectacle," he snapped. "This isn't how family behaves." I listened without responding. He ranted about loyalty, about betrayal, about how I was embarrassing them. But what he never said was why they had laughed, why they had sat silent when my sister cut me down. When he finally paused, waiting for me to explain myself, I ended the call. That night, I dreamed of the dinner again. The moment the CEO raised his glass, the silence that followed, the way my sister's face had collapsed in on itself. Except in the dream, I didn't sit quietly at the VIP table. I stood, lifted my own glass, and told the room exactly what respect meant. I woke before the dream finished, but the feeling lingered. The next day, I returned to the office tower where the CEO worked. Security led me to the top floor, where he was waiting in a conference room with a city view stretching wide behind him. "You've thought about your choice," he said. "Yes," I answered. "It's time we make it public."
He didn't ask why.
He simply called in his assistant, gave instructions, and within an hour the announcement was drafted. By the afternoon, press releases would be sent out. My name would appear on every business article, tied directly to the company my sister had sworn was her entire life. And when she read it, there would be no denying it. The shift was already beginning. My phone, which had been filled with her desperate calls, now buzzed with messages from distant relatives suddenly eager to catch up. Old acquaintances resurfaced, cloaking their curiosity as congratulations. But I didn't answer them either. That evening, standing at my window as the city lit up, I finally opened one of my sister's texts. Just one. It read, "You can't do this to me. I worked for everything I have. Please just talk to me." I closed the message without replying. The announcement broke like glass shattering on marble. By morning, the news had reached every corner of the business world. Headlines ran with my name tied directly to the parent company's expansion. Articles praised my role, speculated on future projects, and placed me side by side with the CEO. Some called it unexpected, others called it brilliant. But every single one made one truth impossible to ignore: I wasn't in the shadows anymore. By noon, the phones at home wouldn't stop ringing. My parents tried to manage it, answering relatives, dodging reporters, pretending they had known all along. Their voices were strained, brittle with the weight of a truth they couldn't spin. Every call they took only reminded them that I had stepped into a position they couldn't control. My sister, though, hers was the loudest reaction. I arrived at the hotel that afternoon for a meeting with the board. Security was tighter now, cameras already gathering outside. As I walked through the lobby, I spotted her waiting by the elevators. She looked disheveled, eyes swollen, hair pulled back too tightly as though she thought neatness could disguise unraveling. "You think this is funny?" she hissed when I passed. "You're humiliating me." I didn't slow down. She followed, heels clicking against the tile, her voice rising. "You don't even know what you're doing. Do you think signing your name on a paper makes you important? You don't belong in this world." The security guard stepped between us before she could say more, his expression neutral but firm. She glared, trembling, but didn't push past him. I entered the elevator and left her standing there, her fury trapped behind closing doors. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was the opposite of what I had just walked through.
Calm. Focused.
Executives greeted me with measured respect, their eyes already assessing me as more than a figurehead. Papers were laid out, discussions already underway. No one treated me like an outsider. During the meeting, the CEO spoke sparingly, letting me handle questions about strategy. It wasn't a test. It was trust. Every answer I gave tightened my hold on the room, and by the end, the board members were nodding, their earlier caution shifting to interest. When I left the meeting, I found my sister waiting again, this time outside the hotel, pacing the sidewalk. Reporters hovered nearby, but she didn't care. She stormed toward me, her voice cutting through the crowd. "You're ruining everything," she shouted. "Do you understand? I worked my way up. I gave years to this company. And now, in one night, you've made me look like a joke." Cameras turned toward us, lenses capturing every word. Her face flushed as she realized too late the scene she was creating. She lowered her voice, eyes darting nervously at the reporters. "Please," she whispered, "talk to me. Just once. Off the record. I'll explain." I stepped closer, so only she could hear me. "You explained everything last night. Remember? You said I didn't belong." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. For once, she had no script, no clever insult to fall back on. I walked past her, the cameras following me instead. That evening, my phone lit up again, calls, texts, voicemails. I ignored them. But one message slipped through from an unknown number.
Short. Direct.
She's at risk of losing her position. They're questioning her. She's panicking. It didn't surprise me. The parent firm's executives had already seen the cracks. She had spent years playing the role of someone irreplaceable, but now, with me in the picture, they were reassessing everything. Her mockery had been her armor, but it was gone now. Days passed. I focused on the work, learning the layers of the company, sitting in rooms where decisions shaped industries. My sister's name surfaced only in whispers, rumors of mistakes, stories of her outbursts at meetings. Her colleagues were already distancing themselves, unwilling to tie their reputations to someone whose control was slipping. Then came the dinner invitation, a private event hosted by the board, the kind where alliances were tested and futures decided. I attended without hesitation. The room was filled with executives, partners, investors. Conversations hummed with strategy, opportunity, ambition. My presence wasn't questioned. It was expected. Halfway through the evening, she arrived. Not as a guest, but as someone desperate to be noticed. She wasn't on the list, but she forced her way in, claiming her role at the subsidiary gave her the right. The staff let her pass reluctantly, and soon she was standing in the doorway, scanning the room until her eyes locked on me. She crossed the floor, ignoring the stares, and stopped at my table. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice shook, but her posture tried to hold authority.
Now.
The executives at my table exchanged glances, waiting. I looked at her, then at them. "Excuse me," I said. I stood, but instead of following her outside, I walked to the center of the room where the board had gathered. Conversations quieted. All eyes turned. I raised my glass. "I want to thank everyone here for welcoming me," I said. "This partnership isn't just about expansion. It's about vision, trust, and respect. The kind of respect that isn't demanded, but earned." Applause rippled through the room. She stood frozen at the edge, her face pale, her hands trembling. No one invited her to speak. No one asked her to join. She was an intruder in a space she once thought belonged to her. The night ended with new alliances forming, contracts drafted, and my role cemented further. She left before dessert was served, slipping out unnoticed. The following morning, another message arrived, this time from a colleague of hers. "She had a breakdown in the office today. They're considering removing her. She's blaming you." I read it twice, then set it aside. Because the truth was, I hadn't done anything to her. She had done it all to herself. The fallout didn't wait. By the end of the week, the whispers had turned into headlines. Business outlets that once praised my sister's tenacity now ran pieces about her volatility. Anonymous quotes from colleagues painted her as unstable, difficult, and unfit for leadership. Rumors about late-night breakdowns and outbursts in meetings traveled fast. She was no longer the rising star she had claimed to be. She was a liability. Her company's executives called an emergency review. I didn't need to be present to know how it would go. The parent firm had already shifted its focus toward me, and every step I took further solidified that shift. Her career was bleeding out in plain sight, and no one rushed to stop it. That night, my parents showed up at my apartment uninvited. My father's voice was tight, my mother's expression anxious. "She's saying you're behind all of this," my father accused the second he walked in. "That you've sabotaged her reputation." I stayed calm. "She's unraveling on her own. I haven't lifted a hand against her." My mother's eyes softened with something between fear and pleading. "Can't you just help her? She's your sister. She's not herself." I thought of the night at the dinner, her smirk as she told me to sit somewhere else, the laughter that followed. I thought of every time she dismissed me, every time my parents looked the other way. "She's exactly herself," I said. They didn't argue. They knew it was true, but they didn't like hearing it. The following morning, I arrived at the headquarters for another strategy session. Cameras swarmed the entrance, reporters calling my name. I walked past them without comment, security holding the line. Inside, the boardroom buzzed with controlled energy. Charts, contracts, projections filled the table. I took my seat without hesitation. Midway through the meeting, my phone lit up. A flood of messages from my sister. Photos of her office, her desk cleared out. A note. They're stripping me of my role. I know this is your doing. I won't forget it. I put the phone face down and returned to the discussion. By evening, the official statement came. She was no longer part of the executive team. The release was carefully worded, citing internal restructuring and personal reasons. But the truth was clear to anyone paying attention. She had been removed, and the timing made it impossible to separate her fall from my rise. That night, she called again. Not 99 times this time, just once. But her voice on the voicemail carried something I hadn't heard before. Desperation. You win. Are you happy? You've taken everything from me. I don't even know who I am without that job. Please just say something. I didn't call back. The next day, I found her waiting outside the hotel. She looked different, smaller somehow, her clothes loose, her makeup gone. No audience this time, no cameras, just her standing there with her hands shoved into her pockets. You don't understand what they're saying about me, she whispered when I approached. It's everywhere. Everyone's turned against me. I met her eyes. That's what happens when the mask slips. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She followed me inside, trying to keep pace. You think this makes you strong? She said sharply. Being cold, ignoring me? You're not better than me. You're just lucky. I stopped at the elevator. This isn't luck. It's what happens when you stop letting people treat you like you're disposable. The doors opened. I stepped in. She stayed behind. Over the next week, the shift in my family became obvious. Relatives who once barely acknowledged me now reached out constantly, eager to associate themselves with my success. Invitations poured in from people who had overlooked me for years. I saw the pattern clearly. They weren't celebrating me. They were adjusting, realigning themselves toward whoever held power. Meanwhile, my sister vanished from public view. She stopped showing up to family gatherings. Friends whispered about her staying inside for days, curtains drawn, her phone going unanswered. Every time she did appear, she looked worn, her pride crumbling in pieces. Then came the dinner at my parents' house. They insisted I attend, saying it was just family. I agreed, knowing exactly what they wanted. When I walked in, she was already there, seated at the table with her eyes fixed on her lap. The room was heavy with tension, my parents trying to smooth it over with forced smiles. Let's not fight tonight, my mother said. We're still family. No one answered. Midway through the meal, my sister finally spoke, her voice flat. Do you enjoy watching me fall apart? The room froze. You think you're better because they gave you a seat at their table, she continued. But without me, you'd still be nothing. I worked for years to build connections. You stepped in and stole them. I looked at her steadily. I didn't steal anything. They chose me because they see something in me they never saw in you. And you handed me the moment when you told me I didn't belong. Her fork slipped from her hand, clattering against her plate. My father cleared his throat, but said nothing. My mother reached for her glass, avoiding eye contact. The silence stretched until she pushed her chair back and stood. You'll regret this, she said. All of you will. Then she walked out, leaving her food untouched. The front door slammed. The sound lingered long after she was gone. I left soon after. The interview changed the landscape overnight. By the next morning, clips of my speech circulated across every major outlet. Commentators dissected every sentence, some calling me the unexpected power shift, while others praised the clarity of my direction. For the first time, my voice wasn't competing with anyone else's. It stood on its own, amplified, unavoidable. But with that rise came the reaction I had been waiting for. My sister resurfaced, not quietly this time, but with venom. She launched her own version of events online, claiming she had been pushed out unfairly, painting herself as the victim of corporate politics. She named no one directly, but her insinuations pointed squarely at me. The posts gained traction for a moment, until old colleagues began contradicting her. Anonymous leaks from inside her former office exposed her temper, her reckless decisions, her arrogance. The public sympathy she tried to spark collapsed before it could spread. Still, she didn't stop. 2 days later, I learned from the CEO that she had contacted rival firms, offering inside information in exchange for a position. He dismissed it as desperation, but I didn't. I knew her better than anyone. My sister was reckless, but she was also cunning when cornered. She would burn every bridge if it meant pulling me down with her. That evening, I returned home to find my parents waiting again. My father's expression was stormy, my mother's voice shaky. "Why are you letting this go on?" my father demanded. "She's out there destroying herself. Do you really want to watch your own sister be ruined completely?" "She made her choices," I replied. "She's family," my mother whispered. I held their gaze. Family didn't stop you from laughing when she mocked me. Family didn't stop her from humiliating me in front of strangers. Now you want me to save her? Neither answered. Their silence was my answer. Later that night, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message that wasn't hers. It was from a journalist. "We have documents your sister sent to a rival company. Do you want to comment before we run the story?" I stared at the message, the weight of it settling. This wasn't just a petty fight anymore. She was willing to risk everything, even betraying her own company, just to strike at me. The next morning, the article hit. Details laid out her attempt to share confidential strategies, her outreach to competitors, her desperation exposed. The fallout was immediate. Whatever chance she had of clawing back credibility was gone. She wasn't just unemployed now, she was blacklisted. I expected her silence. Instead, she appeared outside the hotel again, waiting in the lobby when I arrived. Security tried to move her, but she pushed past them. "You think you've won?" she said, her voice sharp, her eyes red. "You don't understand what you've done. You've taken my career, my reputation, everything I built. And for what? So you can sit at their table and pretend you're one of them?" I didn't flinch. "I don't need to pretend. They chose me. You destroyed yourself." Her hands shook. For a moment, I thought she might lash out physically. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice low. "This isn't over. If I can't rebuild, then I'll make sure you fall with me." Security escorted her out, but the word stayed. That night, the CEO called me. His tone was steady, but there was no disguising the seriousness. "Your sister is dangerous now. She's not thinking rationally. Don't engage with her directly anymore. Let us handle it." But I knew better. No one could handle her the way I could. The following week, she tried again. Anonymous emails circulated to investors, questioning my qualifications, hinting at fabricated scandals. The attempt was clumsy, the lies transparent, but the intent was clear. She was trying to stain me the way she had been stained. The board dismissed the rumors immediately. The CEO laughed them off in front of the press. But I didn't laugh. I knew this was only the beginning. My parents called again, this time more frantic. My mother admitted she had seen my sister screaming in the driveway at 3 in the morning, shouting that no one cared about her anymore. My father tried to downplay it, but even his voice carried fear. They wanted me to help. I refused, because helping her now would mean undoing everything I had fought for. A week later, another dinner was held, this time larger, a gathering of leaders, investors, and media. I arrived knowing the spotlight would be brighter than ever. Cameras lined the entrance, flashes following me into the hall. My place at the front table was set, my name printed boldly on the card. The speeches began, the applause rising at every announcement of expansion, every new partnership revealed. When it was my turn to speak, I stood with steady hands, my words sharp, deliberate. I spoke of growth, innovation, trust, the very principles my sister had abandoned. As I finished, the room erupted in applause. And then I saw her, at the back of the hall, slipping in through the side entrance, uninvited but determined. Her eyes locked on me, her face twisted with a mix of rage and despair. She wasn't dressed for the occasion. She wasn't even trying to blend in. She was there to disrupt, to destroy. The security moved fast, but she was faster. She shouted, her voice breaking through the applause. "She doesn't deserve this. You're all being fooled. She's not who you think she is." Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras turned. Flashes erupted. I stood still, letting her words hang in the air. Then, calmly, I picked up the microphone again. Respect, I said, my voice carrying over the chaos, isn't earned by screaming in the back of a room. It's earned by showing up, doing the work, and proving yourself. That's what I've done. That's why I'm here. The room fell silent. Security pulled her out, her shouts fading into the hallway. The incident at the dinner marked a breaking point. For the first time, her desperation wasn't whispered about in offices or hidden behind screens. It was public, undeniable, and captured by cameras that replayed her breakdown across every news cycle. The footage spread everywhere. Clips of her shouting, security dragging her out while I stood calmly at the microphone. The contrast was brutal. She looked unstable, I looked composed. The next morning, calls flooded in again, but this time they weren't about congratulating me. They were about her. Reporters wanted statements. Investors wanted reassurance. Some even asked directly if she was dangerous. I didn't answer any of them. Silence carried more weight than explanation. By noon, the CEO called. His voice was steady, but his words were sharp. She's crossed into something else now. This isn't rivalry anymore. This is sabotage. We need to prepare for that. I didn't disagree. Because I knew her. Losing her career, her reputation, her pride, it wasn't going to end with humiliation. She would try to tear me down with her, even if it meant destroying herself in the process. That evening, I arrived home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My chest tightened. I pushed it open slowly. Inside, nothing looked stolen, nothing broken. But on the kitchen counter sat a stack of printed articles, all about me. Headlines, photographs, interviews. Every page had been highlighted, circled, underlined in red ink. My face stared back at me from every angle. I knew exactly who had left them. I called security, reported the break-in, and had the locks changed immediately. But the message was clear. She wasn't going to stop at words anymore. She wanted me to feel unsafe. The next day, the board held another meeting and I arrived with security close by. Midway through the session, one of the executives leaned in and whispered, "Your sister's been seen meeting with journalists again. She's promising them stories, ugly ones." I didn't flinch. Let her talk. Lies collapse faster than truth. But even as I said it, I knew lies had power when repeated often enough. She understood that. She didn't need proof. All she needed was to stain my name just enough to make people question. That night, another storm broke. Online forums buzzed with rumors, claims that I had forged contracts, that I'd been handed everything without merit, that the CEO was protecting me for reasons that had nothing to do with business. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter. Perception did. I stayed calm. I issued no statements. The CEO stood by me. The board dismissed the noise, but I knew my sister's hand was behind it. The following weekend, my parents called again. My mother's voice trembled when she spoke.
She's not well.
She's been talking about how she has nothing left. She's angry all the time. She doesn't sleep. We don't know what she's capable of anymore. I didn't respond. Later that night, as I left the office, I found her waiting near the parking garage. No cameras, no reporters, just her, standing in the shadows. Her eyes were hollow, her smile brittle. "You think you've beaten me," she said quietly. "But you don't understand. I have nothing left to lose. That makes me stronger than you." I didn't move. "It makes you dangerous, not strong." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm going to make you regret everything. You'll wish you never embarrassed me." Security appeared, pulling her back, but she didn't resist. She just kept staring, her eyes locked on mine until the elevator doors closed. The next morning, another wave hit. Anonymous emails flooded investors again, this time with fabricated documents attached. Falsified numbers, fake signatures, evidence meant to suggest fraud. The board dismissed it immediately, but the attempt rattled them. She was escalating. The CEO called me into his office. He closed the door, his expression unreadable. "She's not going to stop. She's unraveling, and the more you succeed, the further she'll go. You need to decide how far you're willing to let this play out." Because the next move might not just be reputational. It could get personal. I understood. The week passed in tension. Every step I took was shadowed by security. Every public appearance carried the question of whether she would show up again. The silence between her outbursts was almost worse than the chaos itself. It meant she was planning, waiting, choosing her next strike. Then it came. Another high-profile event, this one a major press conference unveiling the next stage of expansion. The room was packed, executives, investors, media, every eye watching. I was scheduled to speak alongside the CEO, our names printed on the program in bold. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding, I scanned the room instinctively. And I saw her. Not at the back this time. At the side, near the press section, dressed to blend in but unmistakable. Her eyes met mine, sharp, unflinching. She wasn't here to shout or cause a scene. She was here with something else. I kept speaking, every word deliberate, steady. My voice carried across the room, applause breaking at the right moments. But the whole time, I felt her watching, waiting. When the event ended, security moved fast, but she slipped away before they reached her. She left nothing behind. No outburst. No message. Just her presence, lingering like a warning. That night, I found another envelope at my door. Inside was a single photo, me at the podium, speaking. A red X drawn across my face. The line had been crossed. The envelope with the photo marked the final turn. I knew it wasn't about petty jabs anymore. It was about her determination to drag me down at any cost. She had already lost her career, her credibility, her grip on the family's approval. The only thing left was her obsession with revenge. The board wanted to press charges for the break-ins, the threats, the fake documents. The CEO told me bluntly, "We can shut her down legally. One move and she won't be able to come near you again." But something inside me resisted. Letting lawyers handle her felt like handing off the end of the story to strangers. It had to close where it started, between her and me. I waited. The press conference had made her bolder. She thought watching me from the shadows unsettled me. What she didn't realize was that I wanted her close. A week later, another dinner was announced, smaller but important. It was a celebration of the expansion officially going live. I knew she would come. She couldn't resist. The stage where I stood was the same one she had believed belonged to her. Every event, every camera, every handshake cut her deeper. She wouldn't stay away. The hall glowed with the same polished luxury as the night this began. Guests filled the tables, the clinking of cutlery and low hum of conversations carrying across the room. My parents sat quietly at one corner, tension pressed into their faces. They hadn't said much lately. They couldn't defend her anymore, but they couldn't accept what she had become either. I spoke briefly, thanking the partners, outlining the future. Applause filled the hall. Then, as the noise died down, the doors opened. She walked in. Her entrance wasn't dramatic this time. No screaming, no wild gestures. Just calm, calculated steps down the center aisle. She looked composed, hair tied neatly, a dress that spoke of effort, though her eyes betrayed the storm beneath. Every head turned. No one tried to stop her. She reached the table where I sat and stood opposite me. The room was silent. "You've taken everything," she said, her voice steady. "But tonight I'm going to take something back." Gasps rippled through the guests. My parents froze in place. The CEO watched carefully, hands clasped, waiting to see if I'd react. I stood, meeting her across the table. "You already lost everything because of your own choices. You've been so busy blaming me, you can't see that." Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "No, you don't understand. They laugh at me now. They whisper when I walk into a room. You think you've won, but you've only built your throne on my ashes." I didn't blink. Respect isn't given to people who tear others down. You mocked me. You dismissed me. You told me I didn't belong. That's why you lost. Not because of me. Because you made yourself unworthy. For a moment, she faltered. Her face twitched as though the words pierced deeper than she wanted to admit. But then she laughed, low and sharp. Do you really think you're safe? I've already sent things to people who will make sure your name gets dragged. Maybe it'll take months, maybe years, but one day you'll fall too. And when you do, you'll know what it feels like to be erased. The CEO rose then, his voice cutting clean through the tension.
Enough.
You don't belong here. This isn't your stage anymore. Leave before security removes you. Her eyes flicked between him and me. She wanted me to defend her, to stop him, to extend the hand she had never given me. I stayed silent. She realized then it was over. Truly over. Not just the job, not just the reputation, but the last thread of power she held over me, my willingness to care. She swallowed hard, her bravado cracking. For the first time, she looked small in front of everyone, stripped of the arrogance that once filled every room she entered. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out. The door shut behind her. The silence lingered, heavy and final. Then slowly, the conversations resumed. The music started again. Life moved forward, with her absence louder than her presence had been. Later that night, I stood by the balcony overlooking the city lights. The CEO joined me, a glass of water in his hand. She won't be back, he said. No, I agreed. She's finished. He nodded once. You've handled this with more strength than most seasoned leaders. Remember this moment. It defines you more than her downfall ever could. I looked out at the skyline, the city buzzing with energy, my future unfolding in its towers and lights. My sister had tried to make me believe I didn't belong, that I was nothing but an outsider. But standing there, I knew she had been wrong all along. The next morning, my phone didn't buzz 99 times. It didn't buzz at all. She was gone from my world, and the silence was the cleanest ending she could give me. My parents eventually stopped asking me to forgive her. They understood now. Relatives shifted their loyalty. Acquaintances adjusted their tone. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that I had finally claimed my place. Not at their table. At my own.